For questions 1 through 5, match the example language with the grammatical terms listed A through F. Mark the correct letter A through F on your answer sheet. There is one extra option which you don't need to use. So here we have the example language and the grammatical terms. So if I have the words who, which, and that, I am going to say that those are relative pronouns. Relative pronouns who, which, and that. Then we have across, along, and off. And those are prepositions, but these are prepositions of movement. Prepositions of movement. And then if I have the words yourself, ourselves, and themselves, these are unquestionably reflexive pronouns. Then, if we have the words your, his, or our, we can think of them as possessive adjectives. Possessive adjectives are those answers, the ones I am looking for. Then finally, I have the words. I'm gonna get this color. Above, against, and by. And I am going to say that these are prepositions of place. Prepositions of place. The one that was not needed to use was option D, demonstrative adjectives. Now we're going to go into this second part, and we have for questions 6 through 10, match the underlined words in the text with the grammatical terms listed A through F. Mark the correct letter A through F on your answer sheet. There is one extra option which you don't need to use. Now we have here some grammatical terms and we have the text. So I'm going to start reading and pairing them up. So it says, coffee stood on the shore of Lake Volta. So we can think of Lake Volta. And we can say that Lake Volta is a proper noun. Why is it a proper noun? Because it's its name, and proper nouns have that kind of definition. The names of things or people. And looked at the small fishing boat. Okay, a fishing boat. Let's think about what a fishing boat can be. A fishing boat is a compound noun. A compound noun is a word that represents one concept out of two words, which, if I translate differently, its meaning is going to change. Then it says, bobbing on the waves. The boat was empty and had been there for 2 days. He had wanted to jump. He is a pronoun, a personal pronoun, still a pronoun. He wanted to jump into the lake and pull it onto the beach, but he remembered his father's advice. So we can also say that the word advice in here represents, I'm going to just note it here. Advice represents an uncountable noun, those who cannot be pluralized, and knew that he must not take other people's property. is family. Family. So we're going to think about family. Family is, I'm going to highlight it first. Family is a collective noun. It is not plural, it doesn't end in S, but it is a collective noun. It's a word that you can write in a singular form, and it represents many things or plurality. Then we're going to go into the next exercise. And here we have for questions 11 through 16, choose the correct word or words to complete each definition of lexical terms. Mark the correct letter, A, B, or C, on your answer sheet. So we have number 11. Something is a group of words which together mean something different from the meanings of individual words. So if we have that definition, we can be thinking of an idiom. That's the best definition for an idiom. Then for number 12, it says colloquial English contrasts with another kind of English. And this kind of English is called the formal English. The formal English contrasts with colloquial or informal English. Then on number 13, it says two or more words that often go together are called collocations. Collocations are all those words which go together most of the time. Number 14, it says homophones are words that have the same. Let's think about that while I get another color. So these words have the same sound. Yes. Homophones, same sound. That would be the definition for number 14. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so as to be able to see the rest of the questions. Number 15, it says synonyms are words with, and we can say similar meaning. The meaning is very, very, let's say, particular and similar and almost the same. For number 16, it says an appropriate something is the style of language that best fits a particular situation. So we can think of the appropriate register is the style of language that best fits a particular situation. The name is register. Then we're going to go over the next part. It says for questions 17 through 21, match the example sentences with the functions listed A through F. Mark the correct letter A through F on your answer sheet. There is one extra option which you don't need to use. So we have here these examples, and it says example sentences. The first person says, this burger hasn't been cooked properly. Ew. If this person says that, we're going to think about the function of complaining. The person is complaining. If the person says so, then we're going to consider number 18. It says, hey, how about reading the latest Harry Potter's book? It's brilliant. The person is suggesting, I suggest we read the book. I want you to do this with me, for example. Then on number 19, it says, I wouldn't take the car without asking him. He'd get really angry. So if somebody says this, the person is advising. My advice is to go talk to him first and then take his car. Otherwise, he might get really angry. Then we're going to get number 20, and it says, "Excuse me, is it too late to get a ticket for the disco tonight?" If the person is doing this, the person will be inquiring. The person is inquiring. And then, if we're going to explore number 21, we're going to find out that it says, "What do you think of the latest Spider-Man film?" If I'm doing this, I am asking for an opinion. And that would be the order. The one that was not necessary to use was B, disagreeing. Then we're going to continue exploring other questions in this exam. And it says, for questions 22 through 29, look at the two vowel sounds in each word. Match the vowel sounds in the words with the pairs of phonemic symbols listed, A through I. Mark the correct letter A through I on your answer sheet. There is one extra option which you don't need to use. So here we have the words and the phonemic symbols. So let's check them out. The first one is going to be curly, 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 curly. That means I need, first of all, a stressed sound in the first syllable, and for the second syllable, I'm going to just use the unstressed E, E, for curly. So let's check them out. Let's try to see what we find here. I'm going to go over and check them for you. This is going to be O, A, E, O, A, I, E, A, and this one is gonna be uh, uh, E, E, E. So for the first one, we're gonna see the curly represents the sounds curly, curly, E, curly. Then we have number 23, and it says over, or we can also pronounce it ova, ova, ova. And by doing that, we know that we have a diphthong O, and that is going to be the stressed syllable O, and then va, or ver, or va, which is going to be the unstressed syllable. So in that case, I'm going to say ova, or over, over. It means I'm stressing O and for over. Then we have the word village, village, village. And for that word, we have village, village, village. It's going to be the one I'm looking for. Village. Then by checking 25, we have paper, paper, which can also be read paper, 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 meaning a, meaning pay is going to be the stressed syllable. And after that, I need an unstressed stra, which is going to be then a, paper, paper, or paper. In this case, what we really need to understand is how these two syllables, in this case, the two vowels are either stressed or unstressed. And then we can apply the knowledge of stressing and unstressing syllables. Now we have, let's see if I can just get this color. Homework. Homework. I would say that both syllables are stressed. Homework. Now let's think about this. One of the characteristics of pronouncing vowels plus the R sound in British English is that you don't pronounce the R, but you extend the vowel. Homework. 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 And by doing that, I'm going to be using this phone in diphthong. Home. Oh. Homework. Work. Homework. We know that in American English, we stress it a little bit more to make the R to say homework. We just want to remember that in British English, if you have a vowel plus an R, what you do is just extend the vowel and never pronounce the R, especially when you have the vowel plus R sound. Okay, we're going to get, let's say, this color for learner. 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 In here, we are checking out two different sounds. The first one is learner. And if we just want to make it or just adjust the pronunciation to British English, we must say learner, 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 learner. It means the first one is stressed. Learn, learner, learner. And that would be the way of understanding. The first one is learn, and that is going to be like learner, learner. And by doing it, we're stressing the sound and unstressing the last one. Nerd, ner, na, na, learner, learner, learner. Both are going to be okay as long as we understand how to use the pronunciation tips. Then we have nightclub, nightclub, nightclub. And for nightclub, we have I for night and club, club, nightclub, nightclub. A, 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 nightclub. And finally, we can get the word baby. Baby meaning A-E. A-E. I would rather use another color here. I'm going to go with this one. Let's see. Well, yeah. Baby. A-E. Maybe you already saw it. It's here. A-E. Baby. That's the one. So here we just want to remember you don't necessarily need to speak British English. You just need to understand the way vowels and consonants and stressing and unstressing syllables works. And once you understand that, you are going to be able to apply this knowledge in your TKT exam. I hope it was a bit clearer. And then it says, I'm going to just read these. For questions 30 through 35, match what the writer does with the writing sub-skills listed A through G. Mark the correct letter A through G on your answer sheet. There is one extra option which you don't need to use. So we have some writing sub-skills and some activities. So I'm going to try to just use, no, it is too much. Maybe so many like this. Okay, I think it is still visible. So number 30, it says, before I start, I write down as many ideas as I can. If a person says this, the student is going to be brainstorming. You brainstorm when you write down as many ideas as you can about a topic before you start. Then it says, I organize my main points into different paragraphs in note form. When a student does this, the student is planning. It's the planning stage, which means you organize your points. You're not writing them, you're organizing the paragraphs. You're taking notes of how you are going to start writing down, but you have not started yet. You are still planning what you are about to write. Then for number 32, it says, I start writing now. Now you start writing. After the planning, you start writing, developing my main points. So when you do that, you or the student is going to be drafting. Drafting. That would be the stage in the writing process. And after that, we can say that if the student says, I reorganize what I have written to make my ideas clearer, if the student says so, the student is going to be redrafting. Why redrafting? Because you organize, you change, you move the sentence to the end, and you change here and erase and do this and that. So you're going to be redrafting to create a second version from your first version. And then the student says, I give my work to someone else to ask for his or her opinion. If a person does this, the person or student is going to be asking for peer evaluation. Peer evaluation. I want somebody else to help me here. I ask for peer evaluation. And finally, we can say that if I give my work a final check for accuracy, then the student is going to be proofreading. Proofreading. This is what you do at the end. You proofread so you can make sure your writing is accurate grammatically, in punctuation form, conjugation of verbs, spelling, etc. Now it says for questions 36 through 40, look at the following terms for language skills and the three possible descriptions for the terms. Choose the correct option, A, B, or C, and mark the correct answer, A, B, or C, on your answer sheet. Now let's try to understand. 36. Summarizing. What is summarizing? Let's just read and understand. Explaining the test in detail? No, it wouldn't be summarizing. Writing the sentences, the last sentence of a text? Well, not really. When you summarize, what you really do is that you give the main points of a text. Summarizing is giving the main points, the main ideas of a text. Then we have interactive listening is. Interactive listening is listening, responding, and giving feedback. You do that because you just don't want to listen. You want to listen and understand. And after you do, you want to respond. You want to get feedback. That's why it is not just listening, it is interactive listening. It implies a two-way communication form. Number 38. Oral fluency is A, speaking without making any mistakes? No, but rather speaking naturally without hesitating too much. That would be the best definition for oral fluency. We also know that there is written fluency. And then we have paraphrasing and scanning. So I'm going to check paraphrasing first. So paraphrasing is, let's check the definitions. Using phrases to say something instead of using complete sentences. No, that would be summarizing or shorting your ideas, but not paraphrasing them. Connecting sentences together in speech or writing by using conjunctions? No, that would be using cohesive devices or working on cohesion, but not paraphrasing. So, finding another way to say something when you cannot think of the right language. Yes, you paraphrase when you use alternative words to say the same thing. Then we have scanning. What scanning is, let's check it out, is A, reading a text quickly to get the general idea. Scanning. Think about if you scan by reading a text quickly to get a general idea, you would be skimming, but not scanning. But then scanning is reading a text quickly to find specific information. Yes, that would be the definition because you need to read quickly to find exactly what you are looking for. Then we have for questions 41 through 46, match the general advice or motivation with the techniques for encouraging motivation listed A, B, C, or D. Mark the correct letter A, B, C, or D on your answer sheet. You need to use some options more than once. Now here we have some techniques, which I'm going to zoom out a little bit to better understand. Maybe just like this. So, if the student or teacher says, hey, listen to student feedback using a class suggestion box or share questionnaire. If a teacher does this, the teacher is going to be finding out what students think. The teacher is encouraging them to just tell him or her what they think, what changes to make. And then, if we have trained students to use reference resources to help them study successfully on their own, this is very important, on their own, the teacher will be encouraging learner autonomy. That's what the teacher wants to do. Encourage learner autonomy. Study on your own. Learn by yourself. Then we have think about how you tell students about their progress. How you praise or encourage them instead of just giving marks. How can you do that? How can you praise or encourage your students beyond just and besides giving them a specific grade? For number 43, We're thinking about making our feedback positive and constructive. We want students to feel okay. We want students to uh, actually have another version of the feedback just by giving them something that goes beyond a single and simple mark. 44. Put students into new groups for different activities. Think about that. Different activities, new students, different groups. If you do that, you would be then building variety into your teaching, not the same students all the time. Then for number 45, we say give comments on students' work which are helpful and enable them to feel a sense of progress. You want your students to feel like they're progressing. And if you want to do that, what you want to be doing in your class about feedback is making your feedback positive and constructive. You want to give them comments. Hey, students, you're doing this in this way. You're doing good. I think you're doing a very good job here. So students are going to feel a sense of progress and think, wow, yeah, I'm learning in this class. So number 45 is option C. And then we have number 46. Don't always do the same kinds of, like, maybe you understand by the same kinds of things in the classroom and trying new activities and change activities in each lesson. If somebody says this, the person is going to be building a variety into his or her teaching. So that's going to be the way we understand these motivation strategies and how they are evaluated in the TKT test. And we're going to continue here. And it says for the questions 47 through 53, match the learner's comments to the descriptions of learner's preferences listed A through H. Mark the correct letter A through H on your answer sheet. There is one extra option which you don't need to use. So let's see. Here are the comments and the preferences. I'm going to have to do this again. Yes. So if the student says something like, most of the time should be spent doing grammar exercises, we can think of the student as having a particular preference. And that is going to be that this learner enjoys doing language practice that focuses on accuracy. We say that because if you do grammar exercises, you just want to understand the correct form of using the language. Usually, adult students like to do that. And then another student says, I prefer working with other students to speaking to the teacher in front of the class. If the student says that, then we can think of the student as enjoying practicing language in pairs or groups. Clearly, the student prefers working with other students, and the way to have them work is in pairs or groups. Then it says, I really like knowing how language works. And when somebody wants to know how language works, the best way to practice is by studying a lot of grammar rules, explaining, and explaining to the student the meanings and the forms and the uses. We use simple present for this and that, and we use simple past for this and that, and we link in with the present progressive or present perfect, and all these explanations are gonna tell the student how language works. And then it says, rules just confuse me. It's better to work out language from examples. This student clearly doesn't want to study grammar. This would be the opposite. And by doing that, we can say that this learner doesn't want the teacher to explain grammar. For this student, it's going to be very difficult to understand grammar like that. And then it says, why should I listen to other students' mistakes? The teacher should talk most of the time. And by doing this, the learner doesn't want to work with other students. Well, why? Because the student wants to focus on the teacher, not other students' mistakes in the student's work. And then it says, I just want people to understand what I mean. I don't worry if I make mistakes. If a student says that, the student wants to just focus on communicating. Communicating rather than really checking whether what you just said is correct or incorrect. And then another student is going to say, it's important for me to know how well I am doing. And when a student says this learner needs to feel a sense of progress. That's the way to understand how students motivate themselves and what kind of techniques they use in the classroom. Then it says, for questions 54 through 59, match what the student does with the learning strategies listed A through G. Learning strategies. Let's check out these learning strategies. So, if the student says, to learn new words, I always create pictures of them in my mind. The student is clearly memorizing. You memorize when you have this picture, you try to create a mental image of it in your mind. Then in number 55, it says, I always keep new vocabulary on cards, which I separate into topics. By doing that, the student is going to be organizing learning aids. The learning aid, in this case, the tool or object that helps me learn, is going to be the flashcards or just the cards. Students want to use them, students want to sort them out so they can learn better. For number 56, it says, whenever I can, I talk to native English speakers in social situations. And by doing that, the student is using opportunities for practice. Using opportunities for practice. And then for number 57, it says, I work out the meaning of a new word from the language around it. This is a strategy that students use. And the name of the strategy is guessing from context. It's a way of learning students use. And then it says, I pay attention to my own language to make sure it is accurate. And when a student is doing that, the student is self-monitoring. Is paying attention to his or her own language, making sure everything is okay. Sometimes self-correcting, but always making sure everything's just fine. And then number 59, it says, If I'm not sure of the meaning of a word or how to use it, I look it up in a dictionary. And if a student does this, the student is consulting reference resources. Then we are going to get to the teaching approaches and the statements from teachers, which very clearly is explained here. For questions 60 through 66, match the statements with the teaching approaches that they describe listed A, B, or C. Mark the correct letter A, B, or C on your answer sheet. So what we want to do here is scroll down and try to get them all. Okay, teaching approaches. So we have presentation, practice, and production, PPP, task-based learning, TBL, and grammar translation. So, number 60. The teacher moves from providing models of language use to monitoring learners' use of language. If a teacher does this, what the teacher is going to be using or doing here is going to be the presentation, practice, and production method. Think about that. First, you provide models of language. It means you're teaching. Then you monitor learners' use of the language. It means you're going to do in the second P, which is the practice stage. It is very important. Then it says, first, the learners complete a communicative task. They are encouraged to use any English they know, and they do not have to use any particular language item. So by doing this, the method used is the method that we're going to call task-based learning, TBL. And that means students are going to have to use the language they know, not the language you have taught them. I mean, this is not going to be about teaching initially. It's going to be about doing. Let's do something. And after we do something, write a postcard letter, create a shopping grocery list, whatever you want to just do with them. Then you are going to teach them after they try to do the task. Then we have 62 and 63. Okay. For number 62, it says, the written form of the language is more important than the spoken form. This only happens when you teach using the grammar translation method. You just want to give students text and see how they respond to them and how they translate them. Number 63, it says, the language focus is at the start of the teaching sequence, with fluency activities coming later. If you do that in your class, you're going to be following the presentation, practice, and production approach. The language focus is at the start of the teaching sequence, meaning the first P, the presentation. And fluency activities coming later will be the third P, production. Fluency activities, meaning students are going to be able to talk about what they want related to what you were teaching. That would be the third P. Then for number 64, it says the language focus comes after a communicative activity so that learners notice gaps in their language. So first you do the talking, the activity. Like in this case, let's create a shopping list and students are going to be talking and talking. And only after that, you're going to teach countable and uncountable, singular and plural. So that means students are going to be using a task-based learning approach. Then for number 65, it says, learners acquire language by trying to use it in real communicative situations. This means students are going to be using the task-based learning, in which, for example, you want them to create, let's see, they're going to try to do something related to recipes. So you want them to try to tell you how to make a sandwich, and then you're going to try to have them do it, explain it, and only after that, you start teaching everything related to the grammar, vocabulary, lexics, or phonology of the lesson. Then for number 66, it says, the learner's first language plays a central role in teaching. This happens when you translate, because when you translate, you go from your first language and you try to translate it into English. Okay, and after finishing this one up here, we're going to continue scrolling down and learning and answering. It says from questions 67 through 73, match the classroom activities with the types of speaking practice listed, A, B, or C. Mark the correct letter, A, B, or C, on your answer sheet. Let's see. So, this is very important because it has oral fluency practice, meaning freer practice, controlled oral practice, or neither, meaning not A and not B. In order to try to understand this one better, I'm going to see if I can just do this. I guess 73 is visible, so we can continue. Classroom activities for 67. It says at the beginning of the lesson, we got into groups and talked about an interesting newspaper article that we had read. So, it is about talking. It is about oral fluency. You just want your students to discuss, to talk, to express themselves. This is going to be an oral fluency practice. They tell you what they think or what they want. Number 68. The teacher gave us word prompts such as cinema and friends, and we have to say them in sentences using the past simple. For example, we went to the cinema. We visited some friends. And when this happens, it is going to clearly be a controlled oral practice. In this activity, students say what you want them to say. They cannot talk about other things. If you give them cinema, you want them to use that word. You don't want them to use stadium. They should follow the controlled oral practice. And then for number 69, it says, we listened to a recording of two people talking about their hobbies. So they're not speaking, they're listening. Then did a gap fill comprehension task. In this exercise, there was no speaking at all. Imagine the teacher is the only one speaking, and the teacher is the only one telling them, students, listen to this. Students, answer this. Students, do this and that. But there is no like oral production. So this is going to be the first one. That is going to be neither of them. Not oral fluency and not controlled oral practice. Then for number 70, it says, the teacher gave us roles such as film star and sports star, and we have to role play a party in which we chatted to each other. So what happens here is that I gave him some roles, yes, but I am not controlling what they're saying. I want them to just talk using their language. So it's going to be an oral fluency practice because it is based on students telling what they want to tell. Hey, if I'm a sports star, I want to say this and that as a sports star. But it is not controlled because I don't stop them. I just let them talk, maybe record them, but it is not controlled. If it is controlled, I will be stopping them and correcting them all the time. Number 71. We had a discussion about the advantages and disadvantages of the internet. Again, I just want them to talk, but I am not going to be stopping them and correcting them. So this is why 71 is also an oral fluency practice. Then we have number 72. The teacher read out some sentences, some of which were correct and some were incorrect. And we have to shout out right or wrong. And by doing this, let's think about that. Students are going to be speaking. Actually, not. Students are not going to be expressing themselves. Students are not going to be doing anything related to it. Why? Because the students are not going to be giving me answers based on what they think. Students are just responding mechanically. Students are not doing controlled oral practice or oral fluency practice. So this number 72 is just neither. Neither of them. Then we have number 73. We had to ask our partner 5 questions about their abilities. For example, using can. For example, can you swim? Can you swim? So it is a controlled practice activity. Students are going to be using can. So maybe I was teaching modal verbs for abilities, and students are going to tell me whether they can or can't do something. And it is still controlled because it is just about that, about abilities, not about permissions and advice and other things related. So they are speaking, but they are speaking in a controlled context. Okay. Then we're going to continue checking out here. And it says, for questions 74 through 80, match the examples of teaching or assessment activities with the task types listed A through G. We have them here. Let's see how we can understand them better. So, the task types are A, sentence transformation, B, jumbled sentence, C, odd one out, D, form filling, E, multiple choice, F, categorizing, G, labeling, and H, gap fill. So we're going to just get the first sentence, and it says, complete the sentence. Last night, I went to the cinema. If I use this kind of sentence, I am going to be saying that my exercise is going to be a gap fill. It's a gap fill. Students are going to be completing the sentences. Now let's look at number 75. It says complete the sentence. And the sentence is this: the weather yesterday was A, delicious, B, exciting, D, fantastic. If I give them opportunities, options, and words related in options A, B, or C, then it means the students are going to be answering a multiple choices A, B, or C. Number 76. It says, find the word that doesn't fit. We have banana, apple, onion, pear, and orange. So we would clearly say, oh, okay, onion would not fit. And that would be odding one out. Odd one out is the activity in which students just tell you, this one doesn't belong to the group, teacher. Then we have 77, and it says, put the words in the list in the correct box. So we have Thai, India, Britain, Chinese, Swedish, Hungarian, Czech, and Portugal. And students have to decide whether these words represent countries or languages. And by doing that, the students are going to have to categorize. The students will be categorizing. Then for number 78, it says, complete the sentence B so it means the same as sentence A. So sentence A says, the man built the bridge in 1892. So the bridge was built in 1892. And by doing this, we are going to be working on sentence transformation. Sentence transformation. Then for number 79, it says complete with your personal details, family name, first name, date of birth, and address. And for number 79, the kind of exercise is going to be form filling. Form filling. And finally, if it says put the words in the right order, do usually what in you do summer. What do you usually do in summer? It is going to be, for that option, jumbled sentences. That is the kind of exercise that students have to do. Thank you for watching.